Hi, I'm Darlene Carman.
And I'm Doug Carman.
And welcome to the show. Today's show is about houseplants and how they promote good health. Doug and I have had houseplants as long as I can remember. We think of them as being part of our family, and we've had houseplants longer than our children and pets. And the family just seems to grow as new varieties come in, have to have this, have to have that, and then adoptions from when people move out of the area and can't care for their plants, and also gifts. So I have nurtured bonsai and plants for all of my adult life, and I've always been aware of how plants help my well-being. I just feel better taking care of them and just simply being around them. I kind of think of it as being like oil painting. When I paint, I tune everything out and just get into my subject. And I feel refreshed when I'm finished, and I feel like I've accomplished something. So that's always been a given. But just recently, I found out that there's something even more valuable about houseplants and how they remove toxins. So I read about a study done by NASA and environmental scientist Dr. B.C. Wolverton, and that was done like in the 1980s. But I have just recently found out about how houseplants can remove toxins from the air. It seems to be renewed in interest now, coming around again. So this is Dr. Wolverton's book, but there's many others out there. And also I've read information online, and even the garden centers talk about it and have tags on their signs for their houseplants. Indoor air that's not ventilated has a lot of toxins in it, and a lot of it is from synthetics that you have in your furnishings and in building materials in your home and around your home or office. And formaldehyde, I would say, is like let's just say the top 6 of the toxins that are found in your home. And that is from just everyday products. It's used to disinfect certain things. You can find it in paperworks and fabrics, and also in things like building materials, plywood, particle board, and things like that. You'll find that kind of formaldehyde and other toxins as well. So if that's not bad enough, having the toxins in your home from synthetics, you also have it from humans. Yes. The simple fact of just breathing and your other body functions, going to the bathroom and so forth, you'll find that you have all kinds of substances that are released into the air from that. And then, of course, what about pets?
Well, what about smoking?
Exactly.
Smoking is a big one.
Yeah.
And of course,
fireplaces.
It's getting better because not that many people are smoking anymore. But it's still when you have a closed-in environment, it can make the air very nasty. There's one thing though that people have to know. I think it's best to understand how that process works. How does plants remove the toxins from the air?
I'd like to know.
Well, let's say there's 3 basic things that you have to have for a plant to do this process. The first one is light. The second one is water. And of course, you have to have carbon dioxide. What about carbon dioxide? Well, that's very important for the plant. That's the food for the plant. That's how it survives. And so what happens is that you have these little pores on the leaves of the plants. You know, like all your plants, most of them are on the underside, but they're very microscopic holes, and they call them stomatas. And these stomatas draw in the air during the day. The light stimulates them, and that makes them open up. Then they draw in the air and all the toxins, and along with the carbon dioxide, and they move it down into the root system. And that's where the water takes, and the water stimulates the amino acids, sugars, and other substances that break down the carbon dioxide and turn it into food for the plant. Well, what's good about that is that they also break down all the toxins too while they're at it. Yeah, and so you have this process is that the plant is getting fed and the toxins are being broken down and eliminated. I'd say some of the toxins, so they found that they do even nourish the plants, but they get rid of them. And what they do is that they give back to us the one thing that we need is oxygen. So you can kind of look at it as that we have a harmonious association with plants, and where that we breathe in oxygen that they provide, and we exhale carbon dioxide, which they need. So in an indoor environment, it's perfect. You got this balance going for you. There is one other thing that the stomata does, the little pores on there, that's beneficial in the house, and that is that it releases water vapor. So you look at it, the bottom is perfect. So the bottom line is not for in your home, you got the plants pulling in all the toxins, but giving back to us the two things. They're giving back humidity and they're giving back the oxygen that we need. So
good thing.
Yeah, I mean that's basic the bottom line of it. So it's nice that we can have plants and live in harmony with them in our environment. The thing is that I was wondering, and I think your book kind of points out, that not all plants function the same. I mean, they function the same, but they don't, their efficiency. So you want to be able to buy house plants that are efficient for your house. So they're not all equal. So what plants are really good and what plants are
in the studio here? Well, humidity is another thing that you kind of talked around, but humidity is really important. And reading about the plants that I did, I really don't want to get too concerned about this plant does this and this plant does that, because they've tested like 50 or so, probably way more now. But the thing is, it really isn't that important on which plant that you have. The ones that are in the studio here are very good, and I'll point out a couple of these things, but I think it's just the idea of having plants and having a variety of plants, because then you're bound to get this chemical or that chemical out. But if you had to really think about how many different chemicals, and so, well, this plant's going to take away that, that's just beyond most of us. Spider plant here is one. This is a baby, and it's a great one to share. Just about a week ago, I snipped off a few of these babies from the mother plant, and I stuck it in water for a week or so, maybe 2 weeks, and waited for the roots to get, they all have roots at the bottom of the babies, but I waited for them to get a little bit longer, and then I potted it up, and its rate's very high, but a lot of them really do.
For removing toxins. That's
for removing all kinds of toxins. And this one here is a parlor plant. I'm going to turn this around just a bit because I want to make sure you see that it's blooming. Don't get too excited. It's really just a small little bloom, but that tells me that it's happy. So this is a parlor plant. It's been popular since the Victorian era. And what I wanted to show about this is, can you believe that these were all together at one time in an Easter basket? It was a gift, and it was an Easter basket. So what do I have? I have this parlor palm, and I have a peace lily, which is very, very good for removing toxins. And then, of course, our English ivy. Now, English ivy, some people think that that can get really big and invasive, but not really, not if you keep it confined. So imagining these all together, and I could see they started to get stressed. And so what I did is I removed this one and repotted it, and you can see what happens. The same thing would happen if I did it to these. They would probably both like to have their own space. And that gives me something to do in the future. Behind us, we have a corn plant. Very, very good. And if you notice the height, it looks like a corn stalk. This one is very, very happy and very good for removing air. And you can imagine
Toxins in that.
toxins. Thank you. We don't want to remove air. But the thing is, the more people that you have, the more plants that you need. So they give figures that they recommend, but I don't really go too much on that either because it depends on how many people you have in your home. And behind Doug over there is a fern.
Oh,
This one over
Boston
here,
fern.
well, it's a variety. And this one over here is a dragon tree. And that one is awesome. If you were able to get, don't try, but if you were able to see it up close, you would see that there's red margins on the leaves. And it gets very creepy, crawly type thing. So right now, I'd like to show you a picture from our home that's showing you the same dragon tree. So can we see that first picture of a grouping in our home? There it is. So the dragon tree makes a really nice backdrop. It's the one in the back, the really big guy, for smaller plants that are in front. So the plant with the sword leaves in front of it is the snake plant, which is a good choice for beginners. And in front of the snake plant is a variegated rubber tree. Next to it, on the top of the three-tiered stand, is a variegated peace lily, which is an excellent plant for removing toxins. And the smaller plants on the bottom shelves are Christmas cactus. They're not blooming now, but they will. To the right, on the wood stand, is a variegated umbrella plant. And next to it, on the left, is a Boston fern, also popular since Victorian times. So let's take a closer look at some of these plants from an artistic point of view. So the first up is the dragon tree. And this is one of the houseplants that I'll be featuring in my Painting with Vegetables workshop I conduct annually at the Hands on the Arts Festival for Children on May 19th at the Sunnyvale Community Center on Remington Drive. The next plant is the snake plant. The children will paint this using carrots and broccoli. And the next one represents a Boston fern. I like the zigzag movement of the fronds and think this one will be very popular with the kids to paint.
You had a lot of fun painting that because
Absolutely.
the rhythm of it. I remember when you were there. So I love painting this plant.
And this next one is the Christmas cactus in bloom. And I use French fries to direct the plant and let it flow in all different directions. And it blooms in many different colors. So the next picture is another grouping of plants that can be very effective. In this case, 2 large weeping figs frame the curio cabinet. I have the spider plant below it on a stand because the hanging portion of the pot broke. So I decided I liked it this way better. In fact, I still think you can see some of the planter part that broke. It's a good solution for places that do not allow holes in the wall. So to put it on a stand, you don't have to worry about it. And the close-up on the next one is a weeping fig, as the children will paint it using broccoli and carrots. And the next one is the spider plant. So I tried 3 different veggie tools before I decided that I like this one better, which is painted with a potato. So the last grouping of plants is showing you a fishtail palm, and in the front is an anthurium, and to the bottom left is a parlor palm. So, and I think that's it for umbrella plant. Those my notes.
Yeah,
So,
that's the
okay.
one. Nice.
Oh,
Bye.
I have so many notes here, I can't find my notes. So, you were going to talk about the repotting of that big tree.
Well,
Remember that?
yeah, when we did, you noticed that in the picture, that we've had that a long time. I mean, as long as I can remember.
Yep.
Yeah, back. Yeah. And so it's got to be good 40, 50 years old. But when what fascinated me is when it looked so vibrant, but when we repotted it, it was so root bound. It looked like it was strangling itself. And I said, oh my God. And, you know, why is this doing so well? That brought up a question, because it looks so nice. How can people determine when their plants get root bound? Because that's kind of stifles them.
Oh, it stifles them in a big way. That one was going around so much around. I'm really glad that I had you to help me. It was very difficult for me to handle trying. I mean, it's taller than I am, and it just really wrapped around. But I'm familiar with working with that with bonsai. However, with bonsai, I keep on it. Every year I check the root system. But when you have a plant like this that's bigger than you are, and if somebody's not around to help you, and even if they are around to help you, it's very difficult to keep checking the roots. And that's where the problem comes in. So then the plant really tries to put on a good face for you, but there starts to be signs that are showing, like for instance, maybe it has a lot of leaf drop. Now that can easily happen on a weeping fig. They don't like to be moved, and they're a little bit temperamental. But the other thing is, like, maybe you have darkness on some of the leaves. That might be another sign. Or if you have to just keep watering and it never seems to be satisfied with watering, that could be a good sign, because the water is just going through. So those are things that I look for on being root bound.
For root bound. What other things? I've noticed you've mentioned about overwatering.
Yes. Well, I think with plants, I think they're just like humans in their needs. You know, they need air to circulate, to breathe, and they need water, and they need space to grow, and they need daylight, and they need a good bath now and then to clean themselves off. And they need a good foundation, and when you're talking about plants, that would be well-drained soil. So those are, and then you break that down, and it's a matter of how much light do they need? How much water do they need? And that sort of thing. You break it down even further, questioning the type of soil, and you can get really crazy with all that.
Well, it's interesting to note that plants really don't need a lot of water for the process of removing toxins. And that's nice, because any excess water is what is used to keep the plant moist, and that was that transpiration process that brings the moisture back up through the plant.
Well, that's true. And the thing is, you mentioned overwatering, and yes, I would say that overwatering is probably the number one mistake that people do. And what happens is they walk by and they're looking around, and they might see something that looks like it's wilting to them. And they look at the plant and they look at the surface, and it might look dry to them. And water. No. What you really need to do is take your finger. This one is so new, I'll take the older guy over here. And you need to stick your finger. Now, this is very moist because I brought it into the show. But I'm going in here half a finger length, you know? And I check that. If it's moist down there where my finger is, halfway through my finger, it's not time to water. Because down at the bottom, it might still be very wet. And that is the worst thing for a plant. It's better to have it a little bit on the dry side, but see, there again, it's like people. They like different things. Some plants want more water, some want less, some want to dry out in between, maybe succulents, but I really don't even like to label plants like that, because they're all individual, and if you get to be around your plant and enjoy your plant, you'll notice things like that. Another thing I would say is cleaning them is really, really important, because as Doug has been talking about, they breathe, and they take in everything that they need through their leaves. And how can they do it? You know, it's like humans with a stuffy nose. You've got to clear it away so they can breathe. So here again, you go into the, I do this, I do that. Well, when it comes to cleaning, I use two things. Sometimes I use dish soap with just a couple drops into warm water, or just water really. And I use paper towels, and it's like a sponge bath. I take the leaves and I just take the water, squeeze it out, and I just rub it gently, really gently. And I go through several. Now, I have a lot of plants, as you know, so it's kind of hard to get to all of them, but just a little bit's good. And I don't even transfer them. If I'm doing one plant, I don't keep using the same one. I start afresh. You'd be surprised. The residue, when you throw out your bowl, you'll be surprised on how much dirt can be in the bottom. It's like, whoa. And I think that's really important, to keep the plants clean. Now, if you have somebody to do that for you, fine. If you're working on a big, huge plant like that and you have to get on a ladder and it's hard for you, I recommend that you find somebody else to do it for you and do a little swapping, do the laundry or whatever, and let somebody else do it for you. You have to be careful when you're climbing around on ladders, taking care of plants. But that's what I recommend, is get somebody to help you if you need the help. But otherwise, once in a while, a little cleanliness is good for them.
What about special occasion plants? We over here, you have a painting, and what happens is that they bring these plants into the house, and this is a poinsettia, and they bring it into the house, and they have it for the Christmas season, and then it generally, because the house is closed up, it's a little dry, and then the leaves start to drop, and then they just throw it out.
Yes. That is so sad. That is so sad because, okay, first of all, I'm not going to get into is it flowers or is it part of the leaves or whatever, because that's not my interest. Colorful leaves is what people like, and that's what they want in their home, and they have many different colors, okay? But the thing is, when the flowers and the leaves fall off and the plant wilts. Why? Because you have a dry home. It's winter time. So you have a dry home, and so it, you know, falls off, and then it looks dead. So you just toss it because it's like, you know, looks dead. It's not dead. If you let it rest and then you re-water it again, and it'll come back. It'll come back. Not those beautiful leaves that you see most of the time. It'll just be green leaves, but it's a house plant. And it can do very, very well in the home. I usually bring mine, if I buy any, I don't always buy, but if I do, I bring it into the home and enjoy it, and I might keep it in there for half a year. Then sometimes when I think, well, maybe I'd like to be outside for a while, I do that. Like in San Diego, you see those poinsettias, and they're all the way up to the top of the house, and then so. So, I mean, our climate is a little different. So I lost the one I've had for a couple of years. I lost because I took it outside, but then I didn't bring it in when the frost came, and I lost it.
Yeah,
so
they came from South America or down or
Mexico.
Yeah, the lower part of
Mexico.
Lower Mexico.
They came from Mexico.
Yeah, so they're used to they're acclimated to a much warmer climate.
Yeah. So, but they don't need special treatment. You know, I read, even in professional books, I read about some of these things that you put them in the closet and do this and that to force them to bloom again. It's like, just leave them alone. Just water them, take care of them, give them a little light, they'll be happy. So that's one. The other one I wanted to point out here, I can't tell you the name of the orchid this one is, but it's an orchid. And I started out with a collection of a lot of orchids, and I painted every single one of them because I didn't know if I'd be able to keep them alive. And I've had a couple that I have been. This one, unfortunately, didn't make it. But the idea with flowering plants is you bring them inside. Chrysanthemums, or florist mum, they call them. plants like that are very, very good to have. And you bring them inside when they're blooming and enjoy it, enjoy the benefit of the plant. And then you, when you're done, you rotate them and you put it outside and you bring in another plant that goes. So it's just kind of what's going on, what's blooming at the time, bringing it in and enjoy it, and then let it go outside and do its thing.
What's nice about orchids, they hold their flower for a long time. And so it can be a month or so, you can enjoy it in the home. And then you take it outside, and it might take a couple more years before it reblooms again. But you have several like that.
One of the orchids that was on their list was called a moth orchid, and I am doing one for Hands on the Art, but I didn't bring it with me here. Why they did that one, I don't know. And that's my point again, is I wouldn't get too worried about which ones that they tested and which ones that they didn't, because plants, and you get a variety, it's really going to help. And like we mentioned, depends on how many people are in your home. And I can just say that, you know, for us, all the plants that we've had, I think it's really helped.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, I wouldn't know what to do without it. And it makes the home so much homier. And because these are their friends, and so when I want to do a little love to the plant, I come up here and I take that plant and I go,
oh, really?
I love you. And that's, you give it a little bit of carbon dioxide and it just goes, oh, you know it's saying back, oh, thank you, thank you.
But actually, you know, he has a point there when it comes to dust. Another method is to go by, and if you see dust on your plant, just give it a little massage. Who doesn't like a little massage now and then? So you just, a lot of times I do that. I'll see some, in fact, I saw some up here.
With her
and, you know, I just sit there and give it a little bit of rub, gently. But it's a little bit of massage, and it's showing attention. Don't we all like attention?
Yeah. So you can really enjoy houseplants in your home, and make it such a greater environment. Fresh air you have. You have a little bit of humidity and not a dry. So you're healthy. All in all, it's a healthier environment to be in.
And share them. Share the love.
Yeah, it's passed around.
You go with people and oh, I don't have a green thumb and all that. Ignore it. Give them a plant anyway. Give them a beginner plant and let them try it out. Thanks for watching the show. Watch again.